Let everybody get settled. All right, thank you. Welcome to Puget Sound Garden Railway's 2023 clinics. It's like we got a good showing. We got 7 presentations for you today. We're going to start off with Norm and making concrete buildings. All right. With that, Norm, you want to start?
Do I have to?
No.
Yes. If you have enough money, you should.
Yeah, well, no one wanted to buy the convention car kit over there.
The night is young.
Okay, let's see, building a building out of concrete. Next. Why concrete? Well, number one, you can leave the building outside all year round. You don't have to worry about the wood or anything. It's heavy. But some people have complained about the deer coming through and knocking over their buildings, or the raccoons and that. Generally, they have a tough time moving a building out of concrete. And also, I wanted to explore a different construction technique. Usually, I've built a lot of stuff out of wood, so I thought I'd just try concrete because I've read about concrete and I've seen concrete buildings. I thought I'd try it. And you can incorporate real stone, so you can use real rocks if you want. And the other thing, it allows for building a building that may go, if you have a rustic type railroad, it might fit into your era when you want to have buildings that are kind of compatible with your train. So, next, I never built anything out of concrete before, so I got a kit from Stoneworks, or Railroad Stoneworks, and what a kit I bought was this one right here, which is a mill. Has a water wheel, and it's an old-fashioned mill. That looked a little too complicated, I guess you might say, for me to start off on for the first time. But they also had a brochure that had a picture of a little house and some plans. So I thought that'd be a perfect thing to, get my feet wet, so to speak, and give it a shot and see how it would turn out. And this right here is the finished product. And I have to say it's a 10-foot rule. Because if you get any closer 10 foot, you'll probably see some things that weren't quite right. But that was a very good shot at learning how the techniques would work. Okay? So what do you need to build a house out of concrete? Well, first, all these items right here are basically what I use. So you need basic thing is a vinyl concrete mix. You can get that from Home Depot. It's vinyl, it doesn't have any sand in it. It's a little more flexible, I think, they say, than regular concrete. Then the next important thing is a foam board. This is a board that I use to build and make forms on to pour your concrete. It's just a 1 inch thick, and you can get 2x2 pieces out of Home Depot. And the next important thing is a wobbly table. And it needs to be wobbly because what you do is you take your old jigsaw right there, clamp it to that table, and after you pour the concrete, you turn your jigsaw on, and it just vibrates the table, and it makes the concrete settle into form and level off and everything. So your table has to be wobbly. It can't be a strong structure. And you need a mixer to mix up your concrete. WD-40 is used as a separator, so you spray the forms. So when you take the concrete out of the form, it comes out, it doesn't stick to the form. Then the rest of the stuff is just minor, usual small sets of tools. The other thing is hardware cloth. That's just your 1/2 inch screen type hardware cloth that you get in a roll at your friendly Home Depot. And then of course you need some scrapers and wire brushes and glue and silicone glue and that type of stuff. So those are the basic tools that I use to build this guy right here. Okay, next. So what are the basic steps? First off, you have to have a plan or some idea, but this is that form board right here. That's the one that's sitting right there, about 18 inches square. Then you cut strips, like they're called dams, and these strips are just to make the edges of the various forms. Just cut strips, whatever size you need to make your form. Then the hardware cloth, you take this hardware cloth and you cut it inside the form, and that serves as a reinforcing of the concrete. And you lightly spray the form and the edges of the dams with WD-40 so separate after you pour your concrete. And then you mix up the vinyl cement to about like a pancake batter thickness. Generally, I make mine a little on the thin side so it pours in easier and fills in all the little holes and cracks and crevices. And this goes on the table, of course, like I said, vibrates. One real important thing is that when you pour your concrete in there, put the form on your table, make sure it is level. Level, level, level. Otherwise, after you pull out your concrete, you may have a form that's 1 inch on one side and a quarter inch on the other side or some such thing. So you got to make sure that your forms are level. Then you let it set for basically overnight, and then take it off. And you have to still be careful because it's what you call a green state, and it can be chipped easy, the edges of it, so you have to be careful when you handle it. Then you can let it set for another 24 or 36 hours, and it'll cure, and it can be easily handled. Okay, next. So the first thing I did to build it was to build a chimney. So this is the form right here. You can see the dams built the form, and then I found, instead of real stone, well, this is sort of real stone, I found in Home Depot a tile, it's 12-inch tiles for like backsplashes in your kitchen or whatever, and it's all composed of 1 inch by quarter inch, basically, pieces of stone. So all I do is just peel off pieces of that stone to build and put that inside the form. And what you have to do is put the stone face down, because when you pour the concrete's going to be on the inside, so you want the outside of the stone facing down, so it'll be on the outside when you take it off. And then because quite a few of the stones are kind of loose, so I just use super glue in between each of the stones to hold them in place to make sure that they don't move after you pour the concrete in. And you mix and pour it and let it vibrate and let it sit. And this is partially poured right here. It's kind of hard to see, but this is concrete, and this is the top of the chimney, and this is the finished chimney right there. So next is to build the sidewalls. To build sidewalls, very similar. Take and build the forms. Then the siding, the outside of the wall, it can be siding, and it can be used lapboard or batten or bricks or whatever you may have. And what you do, you can buy pieces of material. It's just pieces of plastic that have different, either your siding, type of siding on it. And you take and you put that in on the bottom of the form, and you don't have to cut it to fit or make at the same size. You can just put it underneath and put your dams on top, and just use quilting pins and stick everything down. Put in 3 rows of stones on the bottom for the foundation, and then I cut the screen, the 1/2-inch screen, to fit inside each of the forms. And here's a close-up of what that screen looks like. Up on the top up here, you can either bend it up or cut it. Then the other thing you build is what we call L's. L is nothing more than a couple pieces of screen that's cut and bent at 90 degrees. And what you do is you pour that and put that on the edge of your wall. So one side of that screen gets into the concrete, and then the other side is sticking out. And the reason you do that is because when you pour another piece of a floor or siding, that the other side of the L gets in that concrete, and it helps hold the corners or the pieces together. So then they build a back wall. You make the 2 side walls here. You stand them up, build your form, stand them up, make sure it's 90 degrees. On the back wall had a window on it, so in the hardware cloth, when you cut that to fit inside your form, you have to cut out the window area. So if you can have a window or door or whatever there, you have to cut that out of your hardware cloth. Then what you do, you take a piece of this foam here, the size of your window or door or whatever you're going to put in there, and you take and you pin that just right inside your form, inside where that cutout where your window is going to go. So you should get windows, plastic windows or something from, and make sure that you cut the hole the right size. And then you stand up the walls at 90 degrees, make sure they're up at 90 degrees. Got your form, put your L's in there, and then I clamp it on the top. You have to make sure these walls are 90 degrees, and then they put foam forms, spacers in there with a clamp to make sure that they can pour the concrete, that the sidewalls stay 90 degrees and everything stays put. So when you pour the concrete in, they don't tilt off, and you have a crooked house. And then just pour it, vibrate it, and let it sit for 18 to 24 hours. And on this, because it was side wall and a back wall, I made the forms so the basic forms were about in the middle of this big piece of workboard here. And then when it was cured about 18 to 24 hours, I just took it, you could take it and just rotate that up, not move it, but just rotate it up and let it sit and finish curing, okay? Well, that's 3 walls. The 4th wall is the front, and once again, you just build your forms to whatever size you have to have it. Lay in your casting master, you know, this is the siding. I just lay that down in there, put your blocks in, cut out for the windows, the door and the window right here, out of the screen. Spray everything, not the screen though, but just the forms. Put in your hardware cloth, and you pin your doors and windows in, and then you pour your cement, vibrate it, da-da-da-da-da, and this is what the front window door, front wall turns out to be looking like. You can see some of the bent over screen here from the side walls, and eventually I just cut these off straight, okay? This building has a porch on it. The front, you didn't put any foundation here because there's going to be a porch there. So I built a form for the porch, and I extended the back of the inside of the form. This goes back behind, you know, so behind the door and that, this goes inside. And I use a casting master. I turned it just upside down to give it a different pattern for the porch. It represents wood planking then. I also cut out, there's 3 squares right here, 1/4-inch squares for supports for the eventual roof to go on. So those are made out of foam and they're sprayed. And all you do is put that form in there, pour concrete, clean it off, let it sit a while, and you're good to go then. Next, gotta have a roof. So for the roof is made a cardboard template because you have it's kind of complicated. No, not too complicated, but I just took a piece of beans and made a cardboard template so I could just lay over the top of the house, and it has a little porch on it. And then I use that for making the form for the concrete, and also use that as a guide for cutting the screen that goes in there. You build the roof half and half. The first half is right here. You put your screen and you cut the screen for the full roof, but the first half you build that, and what you do is you make sure that you bend the screen, and this is up at 90 degrees for the first pour. So this is the roof right here. You lay in you spray, put in your hardware cloth mix, and you pour the first half of the roof right here. So after that cures about 24 hours or so, you kind of clean it up. Then you basically tilt it over, take out that form right there, tilt it over, so they build the other half of the roof over here. And when you tilt it over, you have to make sure that the screen or this roof is at 90 degrees when that's tilted, when you laid it over there, so you can have it, because the top of the roof is basically at a 90-degree angle there. So then you build a second half there, then you rotate it over, pour it in, make sure this stays at 90 degrees, rotate it over, you mix pour and everything. And when this is green, after it's cured for about 18 hours, this has a porch on it. And the porch is tilted up from the regular roof about 20 degrees or so. So to make that tilt up, what you do is you see about where the roof line should be, where that it's going to be bent. And you just take a steel edge and a real sharp tool to make a very narrow cut, and you just cut the cement down to on each side, down to the wire that's in there, and then just let it be. Next thing is painting. So you fit the roof to the building. Now there's going to be some sanding, I guess you call it, chiseling. So I use a ceramic tile chisel to smooth off the edges of the roof on the sides, smooth off around where the chimney is going to go, and then you want to paint everything. So you want to mask off the stone foundation, paint all your windows separately, make sure that the deck is painted, paint underneath the roof edges. See, I still haven't, right here is where I bent, you can see where I bent the roof up, and the reason you want to cut that concrete when it's green is so you can, after it's cured and you can handle it, you can just take and bend up the roof to whatever angle or a different angle you want right there. Okay, next. We built the chimney initially, so after everything is painted, drilled some holes in the wall. And on the chimney, when I poured the chimney, I put in some of these L's, and I just cut them down so it's just a single wire sticking out from the chimney into the wall here. Drill some holes in the wall, and then you fasten the chimney by twisting the wires on the back side. And also there's a L on the bottom of the chimney here that will go into the eventually go into the base when I pour the base. Then they put a lot of silicone glue on the back side of the chimney to help hold it against the wall. Once the chimney is on and fastened to that, you have to refit the roof. You need to make sure everything fits nicely, because you're gonna, well, like me, first time around, things didn't fit too good, so I had to do a lot of filing, so to speak, with the tile chisel, okay? And then the last thing is to build a base. This is the floor bottom of the house. So you take the house with the chimney on it, use that for making your form, get the hardware cloth to fit on the inside, and you have to make sure it doesn't go way out to the edges of the forms, because you have to, what's going to happen is you're going to put the building right down on top of that base, and so you need room around the edges for the sides of the building to go down into the base. You cut your hardware cloth, fit it to the inside. Of course, you do your spraying. Then you put a thin layer of cement, and it has to be it should be relatively thin, about half the thickness of the ultimate thickness. And that should be about an 1/8 of an inch, maybe a little bit more. And when you pour the initial cement down, and then you take the rest of the building, all your sidewalls, and you just set it right down on top of the form. You just put it on here and just push it down and make sure everything is level. Then you pour more concrete and finish building this up about 1/4 of an inch or so of concrete on the base. And then there's L's on the side walls that'll be bent over and fit into each of the sides. So they'll help hold the concrete to the sidewalls. And I put in a 1/2 inch piece of foam in there as a kind of a knockout to give either, if you can put wiring up if you want to light it, or it's a drain hole if it gets too much water or moisture inside or whatever. So that there's a drain hole right there. Okay, next. And then to finish it off, you just take your roof, you put it on the building, you glue all your windows and doors and whatever in there. Start putting your shingles. There's laying every shingle one by one using silicone glue. Just rows of shingle, just build it all the way up. And then these are the vertical posts, because I had put the 1/4 inch holes in on the porch area there. They go right through that and into the base, and just use lots of silicone glue underneath here to hold them. And I did not glue the roof to the building itself, so the roof is removable. Okay, so in summary, everything it was interesting. It was an interesting project for the first time. Never have done that before. Learned a lot of little things to do or not to do, and it can be messy. You're going to have concrete all over the place, so to speak, especially around your wobbly table. And I use about a 6-pound pail of this vinyl concrete, maybe a little bit less than a pail full. It comes in 6-pound pails. And then you're using a 10-foot rule. You can see it looks pretty good, but if you look closely, it's not quite square. So there's some things that didn't quite come out too square, but for the first time around, I thought it was pretty good. Important thing is, I had trouble making that hardware cloth. It comes in rolls, of course. And trying to get that thing, the hardware cloth, after you cut it, to stay flat, completely flat. You had to do a lot of bending and pushing and stuff, and if you have to use some quilting pins to kind of hold it down. The other thing is, make sure everything is at 90 degrees. If it's not all at 90 degrees, things are just not going to go together very well. You don't let that hardware cloth get too close to the edges, because otherwise it'll stick through on the edges, and you really can't cut if it's sticking through, it's hard to cut the wire off from the cement. Always handle the green stage after, let it set overnight carefully, because it can easily chip off little pieces. It really cures after about 36 to 48 hours. Then you can handle it without any problem. And I was talking about these L's. You can see right here is a L. Just a piece of hardware cloth bent at 90 degrees. And it goes in, one side goes on the wall and the other side will be on the floor or the adjacent wall or wherever when you pour it, and that holds the corners together. So that's, these are the brochures and and they're on the table there if you want to look at them from Stoneworks. And it's pretty good. It's interesting project. So then my ultimate project was going to build that grist mill. And what I've done so far is I've built the water wheel and the runway for the water to run out. And this is how far I'm along on building the mill project. So this is all built out of stone and concrete again, using similar techniques. So other than that, questions?
What does your building weigh?
You can come up here and lift it.
So not immovable. But it's still
Probably less than 10 pounds, but close to 10, I would guess. And there's the roof. See, the roof comes off.
Norm, what type of a file do you use?
Use a file for ceramic tile. So if you go to the Home Depot, go to the tile section, and they'll have ceramic tiles or files, so you can file it for it. And that file's on the cement real nice, real easy. Or if you have an old bastard file or something at home, you can use that too if you want. But
what are the shingles, or where do you get them?
I can make them. Those are purchased ones, but I have made them like for my barn and stuff using a mousetrap. But I think Bill Thurston can tell you how to build that shingle maker. But yeah, you can just buy them from I don't know if Stoneworks sells shingles or if some other online store, but you can just buy shingles. And it's easier to buy them yourself as opposed to cutting the wood and splitting each one. But I've done that too. Yeah.
Yeah, your house is in one big piece. Did you consider just casting the walls separately and gluing them together?
I thought about it. See, who lives in Ferndale? Drake. That's what he does. He builds concrete houses and he builds his walls separate. And then he glues them together with some real strong construction type cement. Yes, you could do that. Different ways to do different things. Yeah.
You can drop yours.
Yeah, I don't know. It'd probably break if I dropped it, but yeah, you can come up here and lift it and see what it does. This is part of the tile that I got from Home Depot that I use for the stonework right here. So this just comes in 12 by 12 inch pieces.
Did the kit from Stoneworks, did it tell you how to do all that stuff with the wire mesh and all that?
Not really. What I do have from there is look here. It says how to model in stone and cement, and this will give you much better directions. Yeah, so the kit will come and give you some directions, but you really should have something like this and be able to go off and build something, a trial building. I would suggest doing that first.
So is the kit the plans or?
The kit is where for this it was just the plans, and it just came in booklet like that. It's just pages, and so and it gives you all the measurements that you have to do, and you don't have to follow exactly what they have, because when I'm building the mill itself, I'm in the process of that. I'm totally rebuilding it and redrawing. They give you big sheets of paper for plans for the mill itself. And I'm just redoing the drawings on that. Instead of a 3-story mill, I'm going to only have a 2-story mill and stuff like that.
So we use those pins to hold the different pieces on the form.
Yep.
So there's that.
Called quilting pins.
Quilting pins.
They're 1.5 or maybe 2 inches. You just stick them right through the form, and
into the
this is what they call a casting master, and then this is for different types of siding. And I just stick the pins right through that because you can just slide this down here and you can build your form right on top of it. You don't have to cut this to the shape of whatever your item that you're building. You just lay it on there. And,
So the working surface, does it get beat up putting the pins in different places a little bit?
this has gone through 4 walls.
Oh.
I mean, you can look at it. I'll use it.
Now, what about the base though?
The base, you mean this down here?
Yeah, yeah.
This has been used to build everything here that you see, including the water wheel. And as long as you keep, you spray some WD-40 on here, it separates off, and you'll see a couple places where it didn't get quite enough, and it pulled off some of the foam on. Okay?
All right, we're pretty good on time there. So I'll introduce JT and his whimsical whatchamacallit.